All right, Mr. Wayne here right now. Guess what day it is? It's already Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, June 11th of 2025, and it's currently 4:33 p.m. And we are about to start part 20 of Master Key System. We already have our book open. We are ready to go. And Mr. Wayne has a lot. We always got to look at the positives of things, right? Because all of us have a bucket of doo-doo we're dealing with, and also a bucket of great things going on. We'll say bucket of flowers. And we can't focus so much on this. We got to stay focused on this and being patient with the growing of the flowers. Because I understand, man, when you want something to happen right now, we have to be patient with it. The patience could be very frustrating, a very frustrating process. You know, I actually had a customer, I was telling him how I was investing in my real estate license, and he had made a comment. He ended up coming back. He said it was a great thing. He left. He ended up coming back because he forgot something, and he was talking about he was in a rush, and God said, no rush. There's no rush with this, right? And then that hit home with me, and I was like, this man is right. I'm in a rush to move forward in a new chapter of my life, but even for me, God is like, no, Wayne, you still have things to learn, right? And this is not a process that can be rushed. I was mixing rush and processed into one word. But anyway, he's absolutely right. And we are 3 weeks completely off of energy drinks and being away from energy drinks. It's like when I got sober, right, from drugs and alcohol. It's the exact same feeling, right? You come off something, your body has to get used to you not introducing all those chemicals, specifically caffeine and energy drinks. Who knows all the other stuff that they're putting in there. And these last 3 weeks have been at my moments where I'm mentally drained, because we know caffeine is a central nervous system stimulant. And we know the nervous system, the power of God working through the subconscious mind, which we know has its center in the solar plexus in the sympathetic nervous system. It's the nervous system outside of your central nervous system, but yet connected to it. It's the automated function. It has control over the automated functions of the body, like your heart, your lungs, all that and whatnot. Now, your lungs, I know Mr. Hanel explained how your lungs are actually a connecting portion between the voluntary nervous system, which is the conscious mind, and the subconscious functions, the automated systems of the body. And it makes sense too why with meditation, when they say focus on your breathing, right, you have to focus on your breathing because you're bringing the conscious mind, your self-aware part, in alignment with the subconscious mind, the automated part. Because we could not think about breathing at all, but we'll still be breathing because it's a subconscious function, right? It's a clear example of the power of the subconscious mind operating within us and our connection to it. But ultimately, back to the caffeine being a stimulant of these parts of our body. And caffeine has been shown, not only will it increase your vibratory function of the conscious mind for the meantime and get your synapses going, right, the electrical currents within your brain firing off at a much quicker rate, but it also increases your heart rate, and it has your subconscious mind release. You're just releasing more adrenaline. Your body releases more adrenaline under caffeine, which is a huge cause of, it burns out your adrenal glands, and that's a huge cause of your tiredness. So not only, I need to relax, not only are you burning out your brain cells, you're burning out your adrenal glands as well. But anyway, we've been free from energy drinks, and we do still have our caffeine packets. I haven't drinking coffee either. We are still taking pre-workout before we work out, but for the most part, that's something completely separate. And these caffeine packets that I take don't have nearly as much caffeine, and they have vitamins in them. And we've also been drinking a lot more tea, so we could help our brain and body recover from all the energy drinks we've been drinking for the last several years. And I do feel a lot better, and I do feel, what is this word I'm looking for? Here's an example. I have a coworker. He drinks a lot of energy drinks. I feel gratitude. I feel grateful that I haven't been doing that. I have a coworker, as I won't say their name, but they drink a lot of energy drinks. And I observe him on his behavior, his mental attitude, after he's ingested a ton of them, and the difference in how he acts. And that was a clear example for me now that I'm not drinking those and recovering from it. It's a good example of how much it was actually affecting me in my life. And a big reason why I stopped, this was the main reason actually, was because I don't know if it was caffeine in general, but it was a study on I believe it was coffee. I will have to look it up, but it showed ingesting caffeine or coffee or something caffeine related reduces 40% of blood flow to the brain, and we don't need that. We need as much blood into our brain as we can get to keep our brain cells healthy and to keep our conscious mind working and functioning properly, right? Because that's our thinking center, and we know that we are what we think. We embody the behavior of our thoughts. It expresses in our actions, and we influence our environment in accordance with the nature of our thought process, which stems from the mind, from the internal parts of who we are. So anyway, and we've just been moving forward with a lot of personal things in our life, and it feels good to feel that you have movement. Because I gotta tell you, Walmart is one of those places, it will slowly kill you on the inside. Unless you absolutely love doing it, that place will take your soul. We don't need that. We don't want that. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Real quick, we did have our contracts meeting, and we are very excited for real estate. We got to see in real time 2 realtors working on a contract and figuring out how they could best serve their client and getting them into the homes that they want. It was very cool. It was very, very cool. And I have an interview. We'll see how this goes. I have an interview on Tuesday with a company called Express. They're an agency, to see if I could possibly get in a truck with them and start driving again and delivering. Make more money. We need to make more money. Remember, you need money so you could make the choices. You can make more choices when you have more money. And money gives you, obviously it's resources, but I understand the freedom it gives of your thinking too. Because when you think about doing something, but you can't because of finances, you're not really free, right? You have to have the freedom to act on the choices you want to make. Now, obviously, those choices we know go beyond just making money or having the money. It's got to be moral. It's got to be right. It's got to be for a good cause. When you want to fight for a good cause or really change somebody's life for the better and you don't have the money to, not saying you need it. We know Gandhi changed hundreds of lives. He made a huge he had a huge influence on our history, and he didn't, from what I know, he didn't have much money at all. He didn't use it at all. He did that all with the power of the Spirit and fighting for a cause. With certain causes, whatever you want to do, the money will definitely enable you to do something greater. But anyway, I've already said this. Let's get started. I don't want this introduction, whatever I'm saying, to be too long. So, introduction, part 20, Master Key System. We have our last 4 parts. It's been a long study process. So, for many years, there has been an endless discussion as to the origin of evil. Theologians have told us that God is love and that God is omnipresent. If this be true, there is no place where God is not. Of all the times for the hiccups to show up, they show up right when I start. Where then is evil, Satan, and hell? Let us see. God is spirit. Spirit is the creative principle of the universe. Man is made in the image and likeness of God. Man is therefore a spiritual being. The only activity which spirit possesses is the power to think. Thinking is therefore a creative process. All form is therefore the result of the thinking process. The destruction of form must also be the result of the thinking process. Fictitious representations of form are the result of the creative power of thought, as in hypnotism. Apparent representations of form are the result of the creative power of thought, as in spiritualism. Invention, organization, and constructive work of all kinds are the result of the creative power of thought, as in concentration. When the creative power of thought is manifested for the benefit of humanity, we call the result good. When the creative power of thought is manifested in a destructive or evil manner, we call the result evil. This indicates the origin of both good and evil. They are simply words which have been coined in order to indicate the nature of the result of the thinking or creative process. Now, it's very interesting that he brings that up too, because we know if God is infinite in its vibration and he could express himself in whatever form is possible, this should be apparent in the expression of something positive, saintly, as in the nature of Christ, or evil, demonic, satanic, as in the nature of the devil, which we learn through the Bible, and how the devil represents everything that is against God, while Christ represents everything in harmony with God. What's very interesting about what Hanel is telling us here is that he does say that this power is something that just is, that it's not manifested as either good or evil. It's just a pure potential power. The way we apply this power, depending upon what we're thinking and the actions we take and the results that we create, are going to manifest, whether it's a good thing, whether it's a constructive thing for yourself and for everybody else, or whether it's a destructive thing that'll inherently destroy or create some type of destructive effect that we would experience. He goes on saying, thought necessarily precedes and predetermines action. Action precedes and predetermines condition. Part 20 will throw more light upon this important subject. Now, we also, before we move on, we got to go back to just the part prior when he was talking about darkness has no principle within itself. That darkness exists only because light is absent. That light is the real principle behind life, while darkness is just the absence of that principle. We could attach that to between good and evil, that Christ being the light within man, because that is the image of God in the flesh. It is us taking on the characteristics of God. So even God has his principles, his morality, his love. And the absence of all that is simply you having these characteristics absent within you, because you don't, essentially saying, if you don't have the light within you, the darkness is going to be there. Right? We know all of us have both good and bad within us. We all know the saying that we all have two wolves inside of us, one being good, one for bad. And the one that wins is the one that we feed the most. And we know the feeding has everything to do with our actions, our thoughts, what we're giving our attention to the most. So he says, part 20 will throw more light upon this important subject. Another thing I want to bring up too, in The Science of Being Great by Wallace D. Wattles, he talks about this power. He talks about the exact same power Handel's talking about, which is consciousness, which is the spirit, which is the mind, our thoughts, the inner life of man. And as Mr. Handel has said, electricity is a power that simply is. It already exists, and it's a good power. It is something that is neither good or bad, but depending upon how we use it and utilize it, it's going to determine the effect of which it has. That it can be used, as we know today, we're powering the entire civilization with electricity. We could also use it if we're for negative things, so to speak. Like, let's say, for example, Edison's electric chair, right? It is a very negative, destructive way of using electricity, but that doesn't mean the electricity is bad. It just means that the way it's being used is for an immoral purpose. Now, same thing with the power of consciousness. We know consciousness within itself, if it's something that just is, or if it's based on principle, and we know principle is wisdom, it is law, it is God's order of something being done, and the absence, not being attached or being absent from that order, is obviously going to bring disorder. So knowing the wisdom is there, knowing the wisdom exists, the order is already there, and the absence of it is simply disorder. And disorder just comes about automatically with the absence of order. And like I said with Mr. Wattles, he says that consciousness is a power that is good, that everyone inherently is good. And he used an example about a train track. If you have a train that's being powered on the track, then the train falls off the track, it has nothing to do with the power that sent the train off the track. The power within the train is still a good train. It's just, it fell off the track. It has nothing to do with the power within itself. And one more thing, I ended up meeting a Christian man, and we were talking, he asked me what my thought was, because he mentioned how we're all sinners, and we're all inherently bad. And I told him I didn't agree with that. I believe all of us are inherently good. I believe we learn to be bad. I believe the way our society is at this current state of our civilization, and the propaganda and all this negativity, we can say the destructiveness of what's going on in the world will influence you. But we know that even before Eve ate the apple, Eve and Adam were perfect. They were made perfect. It wasn't until they were influenced by the devil that they became, that they experienced evil, that they became corrupted. But before Satan came along, they were inherently good because they were built to be perfect. And when you look at a baby, right, a baby is born, that baby it's beautiful, it's not programmed, it's just like pure, just purity. It's just straight purity. It's only until it grows up in the world or is influenced by the negativity of the world that it becomes something corrupted. And we were debating on it, and you know, he actually stopped and he thought about it, like, you know, that's a pretty good point. And you know, because we are told we were made to be perfect in God. So let's get started with part 20. Let's continue. So Hanel goes on saying, he says, the spirit of a thing is that thing. It is necessarily fixed, changeless, and eternal. So he's telling us right there, the spirit of who we are. As we're talking about already being made perfect, the spirit of who we are, our spiritual DNA is already in perfection. It's already been made perfect. It is fixed. It is changeless. It's something that is solid. It has a foundation, because our foundation, being created in the image and likeness of God, and being divinely ordained to live with the characteristics of God, expressing godliness through the flesh and walking with God side by side. That is possible because we already have the seed of God within us. Again, when it comes to apple seeds, you have an apple seed. You plant that seed, no matter what, an apple is going to grow out of that seed. And it's going to bear apples, it's going to bear fruit. Now, this analogy I'm using, it does relate, but there's also a difference, because we're not apples, we're not trees, right? We're humans. But because we have the ability to understand spirituality at all and understand these higher principles, shows that we have the seed of the Spirit within us. Remember, you have to be a part of the thing or one with something in order for you to even be able to grasp it, to understand it, because you're already a part of it, you're one with it, because we know the mind partakes in both carnal and spiritual qualities. We could understand, right? We're influenced. If we're hungry, we're hungry. We know we need to eat. We're influenced by the needs of the body, but we're also influenced by higher needs, spiritual needs, godly needs. And we have to feed that part of ourselves in spirit. Or as we are told, when we come to God in spirit, not in the flesh, not in the body. We come to Him in the spiritual aspect of ourselves, the part of us that is 100% related to Him. Now, the spirit of you is you. Without the spirit, you would be nothing. It becomes active through your recognition of it and its possibilities. So we are these spiritual beings. We are the I am in the flesh. Now, I know we talked, when we go back to part 4 of this program, when he talks about the I, right? Our spiritual consciousness, our central point of consciousness is identified as the I am. And we are perceiving and understanding our reality through this center, through the mind, through the brain. Because we look at the body, right? We don't say I body, I hand, I am body. We say my body, my hand, my legs, my hair, my necklace. My indicates something that belongs to something else. This shirt belongs to me, right? It belongs to I. It belongs to the I am. It belongs to the consciousness. It belongs to this higher thing. Because I can observe my body, I can observe things, and it's from the viewpoint of awareness, right? It's because, right, our body is doing so many things that we're not even aware of, right? It's this biological machine. We are riding on the back of something amazing, and we're a part of something amazing that we hardly even still know anything about. And we can control it. We can make movements of this thing by the will, and we can make choices. Right? But ultimately, what we do, we mainly reside in awareness as consciousness, the part of ourselves that thinks, that observes, that feels, right? It's the internal portions of who and what we are. Or I don't know about you, unless you actually go to an autopsy or study the body in general, you will never see the inside of what a body looks like, of what your body looks like. Right? You're just operating this. You could have this thing, you have no clue how it works, but yet you, as the operator, are in it, controlling it, and using it to move through this material world. So we're spirits inside of the body. Let's continue. You may have all the wealth in Christendom, but unless you recognize it and make use of it, it will have no value. So with your spiritual wealth, unless you recognize it and use it, it will have no value. The one and only condition of spiritual power is use or recognition. And he opened this entire program with this understanding, right? He tells us that we already have this power. We already are this power, but we have to become conscious of the power to really attain it. Now, remember how he says thought being the process which forms the circuit within us, within our brain, within our behavior, for the activity of this power to manifest constructively, usefully. And that's based upon recognition. In the example that we did use fitness as an example. You want to be healthier. You want to manifest more health. Where do you start? Right? You start first mentally. You start by thinking about it first. You make the decision to do it, and you take action upon it. And you gather information on what it means to be healthy. And then all of your actions and decisions will be based around that train of thought towards health, right? That comes from what we know as the health consciousness. Same thing with wealth. We know if you want to build wealth, you have to understand money comes from being of service. It is representation of service. You're serving people, you're serving your society. And that service has to be quality first and a need second. On top of that, we know that there are economic laws that we have to know and understand. And all these different avenues of how wealth can be created, whether it's in retail, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in a truck, whether it's coaching, right? There's all these different avenues that require a certain specific skill for you to utilize in order to bring money to you. I know Bob Proctor said, all the money you ever need is already in the world. They're just in other people's pockets. So how can you find out how to provide them a service to move the money from their pocket into your pocket? Right? And that's dependent upon recognizing the action steps necessary to manifest that reality. He says, all great things come through recognition. The scepter of power is consciousness. It's the mind. And thought is its messenger. And this messenger is constantly molding the realities of the invisible world into the conditions and environments of your objective world. So, everything in our objective world, Mr. Hanel is saying, is all built upon the blueprint of our mindset. It's built upon our visualizations, our thought processes, our mental images. Again, it's already been proven and shown that the brain does not know the difference between what's being imagined and what an actual external experience is, right? You could imagine your own experiences and you'll respond to it as if it was a real life material experience. Because of that, remember, everything about this program is just simply conscientiously going into the silence, building the mental image of what you want, and moving in that direction just by the simple process of conscientiously changing your mindset, right? You're changing the structure of your brain through the simple act of visualizing and thinking upon the life that you want, the ideas that you want to achieve. and your brain will change its shape. Literally, your synapses, your brain cells, they'll literally change the way they connect together to embody that image and manifest it through your actions, through who you are. Remember, that's the physical aspect of this manifestation. The spiritual aspect of it is all vibratory, that everything is in vibration, everything is made out of atoms. The entire material world that we live in is all made out of atoms, and all those are vibrating at a specific frequency. Now, you, when you're creating that image, when you're thinking upon something, you're vibrating that into the universal mind, into the infinite mind, the quantum field, so to speak, if that's what you want to call it. You're vibrating that thought, that idea into the infinite mind, and it matches and coalesces with other like vibrations, which are material things vibrating at the same frequency as your thought process, as the power of your thought. Remember, this is the spiritual side of it. And by the law of attraction, the law of electromagnetic energy, cause and effect, whatever you want to call it, it's the exact same process. God, the universe, will move things and move you in accordance with your thinking and someone else's thinking, and things will just happen by themselves. You'll meet somebody, you'll come across a book, you'll see the car you were thinking about driving down the street an hour, 2 hours, a day after you just thought about it. Right? That's how it works. Right? Remember, it's correspondence. So consciousness being the center, consciousness being the real powerhouse behind everything, behind all matter, all manifestation. And it's the powerhouse behind the life that we live and manifest for ourselves. So the scepter power is consciousness, and thought is its messenger. And this messenger is constantly molding the realities of the invisible world. Again, the realities of the invisible world. That's the quantum field, the infinite mind, the great I am that I am, Jehovah Jireh, into the conditions and environments of your objective world. So the infinite is taking the idea that you have, moving things around to bring your idea, your thought, as a material fact. Now again, here's the thing, you have to act upon it. You have to act upon what is in front of you. As King David says, God is my strength and power. He makes my way perfect. God will make the way for you, but you have to walk down the path. Now, the reason is because of choice, right? You have to make the choice to do it. Thinking is the true business of life. Power is the result. You are at all times dealing with the magical power of thought and consciousness. What results can you expect so long as you remain oblivious to the power which has been placed within your control? Essentially telling us, hey, we are the power. We have the power. It is the power behind everything in our lives. Our own thought process is, our mental attitude is. And what can we expect when it comes to the life that we live, when we have no conscious understanding of how this power is actually working in our lives? What results can we expect if we don't know anything about it and we're just living as unconscious agents? Remember, just because you're not aware of it does not mean it does not exist. Right? And that's one of the conundrums of where we're at in society, because quantum physics does show on a subatomic level that atoms and electrons, I believe the photon does too, they manifest they manifest around how they are being observed by an observer. Right? If I'm imagining a chair, the electrons floating throughout all of space, all of empty space, well, no such thing as empty space, floating around the field, is grouping themselves and legitimately creating a chair on an invisible subatomic level. That is exactly what is happening. But it's not material yet, right? It's not material. It hasn't, I'm not making the chair. It hasn't made its way into the material realm. I hope I'm explaining this correctly. As compared to like the earth, we know the earth is here, we know the moon is there, we know the sun is there. And whether I believe the earth was here or not does not deny the reality that earth is here, right? That we are all on this planet. This is such a funny explanation. But ultimately saying, yeah, we have this one mind common to everyone, and we are all expressions and one with that mind, but yet it is divided into different channels. It's manifested through different things, right? And the manifested part, the material part, operates on a different plane, yet it's still the same plane as the spiritual part, because we know these electrons are still around us and they're all moving, and they're moving in accordance with our observation. But we know this book is solid, and regardless of how I observe this book to be, it is something that just is. I think that may have made a little bit more sense than what I was saying before, because let's say, right, let's say if somebody passes away, it doesn't mean life doesn't go on for me, even if they're made out of the same mind, right? If I passed away, life would continue on for you, or regardless if we're connected and stem from the same substance, whether our mind is the same. Right? That's where we're getting to. Anyway, but like in how we're talking about principle, right? Again, we'll use gravity because gravity is simple. We know gravity is a principle. It's a universal law. Regardless if you believed in gravity or not, if you stepped off that building, you're going to get pulled down. Okay, whether you're aware of it or not does not mean it doesn't exist. Even though we are told, unless you know about it, some people legitimately say that if you don't know about it, it doesn't exist. It may not exist to you, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist in the world. Anyway, let's continue. So long as you do this, so long as you remain oblivious to this ability that you have and these laws of which you live with, you limit yourself to superficial conditions and make of yourself a beast or burden for those who think, those who recognize their power, those who know that unless we are willing to think, we shall have to work. And the less we think, the more we shall have to work, and the less we shall get for our work. And that makes a lot of sense, because we know, let's say we look at a corporation, we look at the leaders of the corporation. You have your CEO, you have your CFO, you have your executives, you have management. It just goes down. But ultimately, the board members are the head, right? They're the head of the business. They're the mind of the business. They're the ones that think. They have their data. They have the market. They have their ideas, like their ideal, their visions for the company, right? They have all these. They're working specifically with the thought, right? They're working with the cause of what causes the business to build, to be. They're working on the cause and how they could serve their society. They're working on the deeper internal aspect, the vision of the business, which is why they get paid the most for it. Because a lot of people, they don't want to have the vision. They don't want to run a business. They don't want to do any of these things. They want to live a secure life, at least have something to do and be somewhat taken care of. Those are the people that are going to be the ones, because you would call them the ones that think less, right? They're not really engaging in critical thinking as much as these other people are. And they would have to work more, because they're when you look at a W-2 and an employee, They are trading. They're selling their time and attention in exchange for money, right? And how they can participate in the corporation. But the builder and owner of that corporation, the creator of it, was the one who really created it. Now, obviously, you need both. You need your employees to do a lot of work so you don't have to do everything yourself. But ultimately, right, it's the idealist. It's the one who can have the ideal and work extremely hard. Let's keep it simple, Wayne, okay? The more you think, he's saying the more you think, the less you have to work. Now, obviously, that depends on what you're doing, right? It really depends on what you're doing and what profession you're in. Because if you could find something to think hard and work hard simultaneously, you could definitely get more done. Look at Elon Musk. Well, look what this man has created by being a hard thinker and a hard worker, not just one over the other. But the less we think, the more work we shall have to do. The secret of power is a perfect understanding of the principles, forces, methods, and combinations of mind, and a perfect understanding of our relationship to the universal mind. It is well to remember that this principle is unchangeable. If this were not so, it would not be reliable. All principles are changeless. Now again, as we talked about order, infinite intelligence has an order. It has a specific mathematical, rational way of doing things and bringing things about. There is absolutely no way we as humans could have come into existence without an intelligence backing it, right? There is an intelligence within us that we are connected to and made from and created out of that is orderly. It's changeless. And what he is telling us, since we have choice, we can choose to live in accordance with these principles and bring our thought process in alignment with the natures, the workings of natural laws. Right, that is how you build that polarity. Remember the polarity, how he mentioned we're all essentially batteries, right? But in order for the battery to be really charged is to plug it in to its source, right? For you to really manifest this power, you have to plug yourself in to the power. And that plugging in is simply understanding it, gaining access to it in consciousness. It's simply a thought process. It's an understanding, a wisdom you have to have. And because everything is principle, it means that the laws of God, everything that God is completely reliable. It is stable. He says this stability is your opportunity. You are its active attribute, the channel for its activity. The universal can act only through the individual. So what he told us there is that the only way this infinite intelligence can manifest its power in so many different ways is to embody itself in a material form. That the universal mind had to create material forms in order to manifest itself as something, through something. Because without the manifestation, it is something that just is. It'll just be pure intelligence. That is very interesting because you look at us too. Really observe ourselves as a human being. We could go into the silence. We could be at home at the kingdom of heaven within. And we could just be sitting there in the silence, being with God. But yet, we have to express ourselves. Right? We have to be doing something that makes us happy. We can't sit there for a very long time not doing anything. Right? We have to apply ourselves to something. It's the exact same thing with the infinite. God, infinite intelligence, had to apply itself through something, which would be matter, which would be us, which would be just this universe that is created, right? This infinite created universe. When you begin to perceive that the essence of the universal is within you, it is within you, is you, you begin to do things. You begin to feel your power. It is the fuel which fires the imagination, which lights the torch of inspiration, which gives vitality to thought, which gives life to thought, which enables you to connect with all the invisible forces of the universe. It is this power which will enable you to plan fearlessly, to execute masterfully. I'm going to look something up really quick because I had been told, I remember hearing that God thought everything into existence. It was scripture in the Bible. I remember hearing this amazing song too. It was by Love and the Outcome. Now they make great music that has meaning, and I believe the song was called Galaxies. And the singer, the lyrics go like, your words demanding galaxies, like your thoughts are far beyond my thoughts, yet I'm still always on your mind. Essentially singing to God as this infinite power, being infinite, omnipotent, omniscient, immortal, everywhere present. It's regardless of how omnipotent it still thinks of us, right? It still has us in its mind, and how we ourselves have been thought into existence by the universal mind, which makes a lot of sense because, right, my St. Michael candle